Greetings to those of you watching this video today. I am now on painting number 9 out of this series of paintings, and yet another blank canvas has arrived. So today, a bit of sunlight. Don't know whether it's a good idea to open it or close it for the light, but I will eventually find out, because I have seen there are some reflections here with the linseed oil. Nevertheless, let's just continue with the painting. I'll put up the image that I'm using as my point of reference as well just now on the right hand corner. In the meantime, I'm just adding oil paint and linseed oil. So mostly the palette on this one is a lot of burnt siennas, and I thought to keep it within the more reddish warm tone to give the painting a nice warm feel, a warm finish. Although the picture I've looked at is very black and white, but I just felt for this particular one it would be quite interesting. Although having said that, there are some purples and greens and a bit of yellows stuck inside the initial mix. So once I come in with my turpentine, it will actually still give the painting towards the end a more colourful feel, but very subtle, of course. And say, for instance, when I take the turpentine and put it on the painting and a little bit of green or something appears, it gives me a guideline, so when I get more refined I can add more greens and whatever color shows up from the underpainting and bring it out as a part of the final finish, which is something I let into it. I just let it happen as it goes. I don't plan it too much. But the idea here is to create a nice, thick, lush surface to work on. You can see the reflections of the sunlight on the painting. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I will certainly next time keep the door closed. There's one more to come after this. Then I've got 10 I've started on session 1. I think one or two of them have gone to session B. Then I will work on those 10 at the same time. Okay, to get to this picture. Now here I'm using this effect. I'm going to call it ghost painting. It's almost as if it's a ghost painting, because by putting the turpentine on with a little brush and putting on the basic composition, literally it looks like there's a ghost in the painting just arriving, because as I let the turpentine settle on the painting, it sort of eats into the original. And oh, there's my brush. I've been looking for my nice brush. And then, of course, the cloth from here on, again, only turpentine involved. And it's almost as if there's a ghost underneath the original color, surface I've put down, and appearing as I paint in with the turpentine. I'm just going to dry the brush nicely and clean it. I'm getting a bit prepared here, so do apologize. But it's all part of the process. I thought I'd just add it, not edit that out. Okay, now with the big brush I do my ghost painting, and there. See, the moment I pick up the paint from the brush after I've dipped it in turpentine, then the luminosity of the white paint underneath does show, and I can really manipulate it quite nicely, depending on how much I load the brush with turpentine and how much I take off. And the rest of it sort of happens as the turpentine mixes with the linseed oil and the oil paint. So it's a three-way mix. It's turpentine, linseed oil, and of course different colors of the palette. And then the white underneath comes out, reveals itself. The ghost in the painting shows his presence. To get that sort of almost spiritual, ghostly feeling as one paints this way, because see, the mark just actually comes out from nowhere, so it's quite a sort of a intuitive way of working initially. So I'm not going to follow this image too religiously. I'm just liking it as a point of reference because it does have a certain craziness to it, and I like the idea of the circle, because the circle is eternal, and it does symbolize a lot of good things in art, although I'm not trying to do symbolic art, but this is more about the texture and the feel of it and the atmosphere. Now I've changed to the thicker brush, a little bit bigger brush, just to get some more broader marks in, and then with some brush it harder and brush it with some turpentine and get some bigger, some heavier lights in, and then eventually as the painting develops I'll change my brushes and go to smaller brushes as well, because the variation in this sort of work is so important. So just to avoid the monotony of brush mark making and keep the whole thing interesting, and it's about texture and feeling. So this process is pretty much almost the smaller brush. I've just put some turpentine on it and I clean it with my brush to really bring out some lovely, nice luminous whites. So when it dries, they can all settle in together and it gives me a nice tonal finish for the next session, which will be in about 2 weeks' time. And as normally, I don't get too fussed on the initial painting because I can kill it with too much. Like I think this is actually where I stopped with the basic painting, and then from here on I will start showing a few details and then let rest. So it's a very quick and relaxed process in the beginning. Like here, for instance, I'm just going to show a few clips I've filmed because I can't film the whole thing. The whole session took me about 2 hours, just about a bit more refinement where I wipe the brush and rub in the linseed oil and try and pick up some of the medium and the paint and just blend it in areas that I find are needing a little bit more finished work towards in the first session, and softening the paint in certain areas, like here for instance, where I'm just basically just very gently rubbing the brush onto the surface and just blending the paint in quite softly, not trying too much to control it. And here again, just keep the thing pretty much light, very light at this stage, because as it dries over the next 2 weeks, it will change and take shape and settle. I just don't want too much paint to be on the canvas and too much linseed oil in these stages, because it does tend to run a little bit too much. And here's just another typical example of just softly blending it in and giving it a little bit of character where I feel I need to, so it does dry and look at least like it's been worked a little bit. It's quite important, really. I think I do eventually need to get a stronger lens, because this lens does tend to go out of focus a little bit, but I think the idea is here. I'm painting it's being documented, the whole process. Yeah. So it's just a subtle work down of taking some paint off, rubbing it with the cloth, keeping the brush clean and softening it as I go. And if I do want a certain area here to be a little bit more luminous, more white showing, instead of adding white paint, I just add turpentine to the brush and rub it and let the primed, I think it's PVA from underneath, shine through. And much later, towards the end, I'll add white oil paint to highlight here and there. And this is what I've come up with. This is about a 2.5 hour session, and as usual I'm going to rotate it around so you can see the painting from different angles, and from here on it will now go to sleep for 2 weeks' time. I think it's quite a nice effect it's come out with. Quite yeah, it's quite deep and beautiful. I like it. So we shall revisit this painting again in 2 weeks' time.